The glass lobby of the Vanguard Genesis Tower in Atlanta gleams under the lights. Marcus, a black single dad in a worn tweed coat, walks in holding his daughter Maya's hand. He wants to quietly watch the company to protect his late wife's legacy. But Devin Cross appears. The arrogant boss insults his poor clothes, making little Maya sob. Then, the truth comes out. Preston secretly cut 35% of his wife's energy project budget to pocket $82 million. Marcus, the secret billionaire with the master key, decides to punish them all. Many legal traps and betrayals are waiting for him. How will this single dad get his justice? The marble floor of the lobby caught every drop of light from the ceiling above. It stretched out wide and cold, polished like a mirror. Maya's small shoes squeaked softly on the smooth stone. She looked up at the glass walls, 50 stories tall, and her eyes went wide with wonder. Bright chandeliers hung far above their heads, casting soft golden light across the wide open space. Marcus held her hand tight. He walked slow, his old boots quiet against the marble. He did not come here to make noise. He just wanted one quiet hour inside these walls, watching from the shadows. This was the tower his late wife had helped build with her own two hands. He wanted to see what her dream had become. That quiet hour did not last long. Devin Cross crossed the lobby like he owned the very air around him. His Italian leather shoes clicked hard and sharp against the floor. A gold watch flashed on his wrist, bright and loud. He slowed down as he passed Marcus and Maya. His eyes moved over the old tweed coat, the patched elbow, the worn brown boots. His lip curled into a smirk full of contempt. "This is a corporate lobby," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Not a shelter for people like you." A few nearby staff members turned to look. Nobody said a word to stop him. Maya's small lip began to shake. Then she started to cry, soft and scared, hiding her face in her father's coat. Marcus said nothing back. His jaw tightened once, hard. Then he simply picked Maya up in his arms and walked toward the door. A young security guard named Reggie stood near the front desk, watching the whole scene unfold. He wanted to step in and say something kind, but his manager stood just a few feet away, arms crossed, watching too. Reggie stayed quiet. He only looked down at his shoes, ashamed of his own silence. A woman in a business suit walked past quickly, pretending not to notice anything at all. That was how these hallways worked. Comfort for the powerful, silence for everyone else. Marcus carried Maya out, through the tall glass doors, and into the warm Atlanta afternoon. He did not look back once. His steps stayed steady, calm, almost slow. But his hand, wrapped tight around his daughter's small body, trembled just a little. He whispered softly into her hair. "We're okay, baby girl. We're okay." Maya sniffled against his shoulder, still holding her worn astronaut bear tight in one small fist. That single moment cracked something deep inside a tower built on shining glass. Nobody in that lobby knew it yet, but a storm had just begun. Back in Zone 3, the poorest part of Atlanta, an old apartment building waited for them at the end of a cracked street. Paint peeled off the front wall in long gray strips. Inside their small unit, the walls smelled like damp wood and old rain. A pot of potato soup steamed gently on the stove, filling the kitchen with warmth. Marcus set Maya down at the small wooden table. He wiped her tears with his thumb and gave her a soft, tired smile. Somewhere outside, a train whistle rolled long and low through the night air, fading into the dark. Maya hugged her stuffed astronaut bear close to her chest, the way she always did before bed. One of its plastic eyes was chipped and dull now, worn from years of love. It had belonged to her mother once, a small gift from before Maya was even born. Marcus washed a small towel in the kitchen sink, his fingers moving slow under the cold water. They trembled just slightly. He held back a long, tired breath so his daughter would not see him worry. He tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead gently. 3 years ago, Aaliyah had worked late nights in this very kitchen, sketching solar panels on cheap paper napkins. She always said clean power could save the neighborhoods that everyone else forgot. Then a car accident took her life on a rainy October night, just months before her project finally got approved. Marcus buried his old identity along with her that same week. He walked away from boardrooms, from stock reports, from everything that once made him powerful. He became just a quiet man raising a little girl alone. Under his own bed, hidden in shadow, sat an old military-grade laptop covered in a thin layer of dust. Nobody knew what secrets lived inside that quiet, dusty case. Tomorrow, that small machine would wake up and shake the whole financial world of Wall Street. Later that night, long after Maya had fallen asleep, the old laptop screen flickered to life on its own. A sharp mechanical beep cut through the silence of the small apartment. A red alert filled the dark screen with harsh light. The message was short and cold. The urban solar grid project had just lost 35% of its research funding. The order came straight from Preston Vance, Executive Vice President of Vanguard Genesis. His stated reason was simple. He called it asset optimization. Blue light spilled across Marcus's face in the dark bedroom. Maya's breathing stayed slow and steady behind him on the small bed. The old bed frame creaked once under her light body, then went still again. Marcus's jaw locked tight. A muscle jumped hard under his cheek. His chest rose and fell fast, breath after breath. He scrolled through page after page of the cancellation report, his eyes moving fast in the dim blue light. Every chart showed the same story. Funding gone. Timeline erased. Years of careful planning wiped away by a single email marked approved. That solar project carried his late wife's name on every single page of its design. Now some cold executive had crossed it out with one careless signature. Would a hidden engineer risk his daughter's safe, quiet life just to fight a giant company like this one? The next morning, Marcus stood in front of a small photo of his wife, Aaliyah, resting on a shelf by the window. She smiled bright in the picture, standing beside her hand-drawn solar grid blueprints. Thin incense smoke curled slowly around the cracked wooden frame. Cold morning wind slipped through a gap in the window and moved the thin curtain softly. Marcus closed his eyes tight. 2 hot tears rolled down his tired, sunburned face. His throat locked up hard. No sound came out at all. He remembered the reporters who once camped outside his old penthouse, cameras flashing at every window. He remembered strangers who claimed to be friends, only chasing his money. He never wanted that life anywhere near Maya. She deserved quiet mornings and simple soup dinners, not bodyguards and locked gates. He was scared, deep down. If he showed his true face to the world, old enemies from his past life might come looking for his daughter. He shut the laptop hard, almost slamming it. He told himself he was just a poor single father now, not a tech king anymore. That title belonged to a different life, a life that ended the day Aaliyah passed away in the hospital. 2 days later, a local news anchor spoke on the small kitchen television while Maya ate her cereal. Zone 3 residents should expect rolling blackouts this summer, the anchor said, her voice flat and routine. City officials cite budget constraints on the delayed solar grid initiative. Marcus stood frozen by the counter, coffee mug halfway to his lips. Maya did not notice. She just kept eating, swinging her feet under the chair. But Marcus felt his stomach twist into a hard, cold knot. He turned off the television and stood in silence for a long moment. Outside the window, an old air conditioner rattled weakly against the summer heat. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and went quiet again. Marcus pressed his palm flat against the cool kitchen counter, steadying himself. How long could his silence last? Once the news stations started reporting blackouts hitting his own struggling neighborhood. Later that day, Marcus took Maya to an old repair shop tucked away on the edge of the city. Rusted signs hung crooked above the entrance. Inside, Arthur waited among piles of scrap metal and old machine parts. Arthur was an old engineer with tired, cloudy eyes but a sharp, quick mind underneath. He used to serve as chief engineer at Vanguard Genesis, years before the company grew so large. He had been Aaliyah's mentor back when she was just starting out as a young intern. The moment Marcus walked through the door, Arthur knew exactly who stood before him. Oil and rust filled the small shop, with a heavy, thick smell that clung to the air. A hammer tapped steady on metal somewhere in the back room, like a slow heartbeat. Arthur reached under his workbench and pulled out an old leather notebook, its cover cracked and soft with age. It held Aaliyah's core math formulas, the very equations she had built her whole career on. He had saved it from the company shredder years ago, hiding it here in his shop. His shaking, calloused hand gripped Marcus's shoulder tight. Something electric seemed to pass through that simple touch. Marcus's shoulder went stiff, with a feeling he could not quite name. "She always said you'd come back one day," Arthur said quietly. His voice was rough, like gravel. "I just didn't know it would take this long." Sunlight cut through a dusty window in thin, gold lines, landing across a shelf of old wrenches and gears. Maya wandered around the shop, touching old gears and rusty tools with careful fingers. Arthur watched her for a moment, a small smile pulling at his lined face. "She's got her mother's eyes," he said softly. Marcus nodded, unable to speak just yet. Arthur pulled two folding chairs close together and sat down slowly, his knees creaking. "Preston always hated your wife's project," he continued. "Said clean energy for poor neighborhoods wasn't profitable enough. He tried to kill it twice before, back when Aaliyah was still fighting for it herself." Marcus's hands curled into fists at his sides. "And now he's finishing the job," he said quietly. Arthur nodded slow. He reached over and tapped the notebook's worn cover with one thick finger. "Everything she needed to finish that grid is in here. The formulas, the funding models, even the backup power calculations. Preston doesn't know it survived. Nobody does but me." What could this torn old notebook possibly hold that $2 billion companies would kill just to have it? Holding that notebook close to his chest, Marcus made a choice he could not undo. He applied for a night shift technical support job right inside the Vanguard Genesis Tower itself. He wanted to get inside the system, from within, quiet and unseen. He left Maya with Arthur for safekeeping, promising to come back soon. Then he put on a gray, worn technician uniform, the kind nobody ever looks at twice. He walked through the tower's tight security gates, ready to disappear into the crowd of workers. The morning crowd of employees flowed past him in a steady river of suits and badges. Nobody looked twice at a tired man in a gray uniform. A security scanner beeped sharp and cold at the front entrance. The marble floor threw back bright white light from every angle, almost blinding. Marcus held his breath for 3 full seconds during the retina scan. Nerves in his temple twitched once, sharp and quick. He dropped his screwdriver on purpose, letting it clatter loudly on the floor. That pulled the guard's eyes away from the screen. The guard barely glanced at him before waving him through. The night before, Marcus had practiced his new name in the bathroom mirror. "Marcus Sterling, technical support," he repeated quietly, testing how the words felt in his mouth. He rubbed a bit of gray dust into his hair to look older, more tired, less noticeable. He studied the building's floor plan for hours, memorizing every hallway and every camera angle from old blueprints Arthur had kept. He knew every second inside. That tower would matter now. Walking into the tiger's den with a fake identity was dangerous work. One small mistake here could put him behind bars forever. On the 48th floor, Marcus soon saw Devin Cross yelling loudly at a young assistant named Elena. She had spilled hot coffee across some important company papers by accident. Devin's voice echoed down the hallway, sharp and cruel. Marcus quietly stepped in to help clean up the mess with a rag. While wiping the desk clean, he secretly restored a data file that Devin had deleted by mistake earlier that day. That small, quiet favor earned him his very first ally inside the tower. Moments later, he crossed paths with Sloane Hastings, the sharp and confident branch president. She looked at Marcus with quiet suspicion, studying his face for just a second too long. But a loud, heated argument pulled her attention away almost instantly. She was fighting hard with Preston Vance about the legal risk of the Titanium Global deal. Her designer heels struck the dark wood floor with a hard, crisp sound as she paced. Her expensive perfume clashed sharply against the harsh smell of floor cleaner in Marcus's plastic bucket. "You promised the board this deal was clean." Sloane snapped at Preston near the elevator bank, her voice sharp and low. "If Titanium Global finds one hole in that contract, my name is on it too." Preston waved a hand dismissively, barely looking up from his phone. "Relax, Sloane. Everything is signed and sealed," he said smoothly. His calm tone did not match the tight grip of his fingers around his phone case. Elena's face turned bright red with shame. Her eyes filled. With tears she refused to let fall in front of her boss. Her shoulders shook slightly under Devon's cold, mocking words. Marcus gripped his cleaning rag, so tight his knuckles turned pale white. Later, in a quiet corner near the break room, Elena finally spoke to Marcus in a low whisper. "Thank you for fixing that file," she said, glancing over her shoulder nervously. "I don't know what I would have done." Her voice shook slightly. She looked down at her shoes, avoiding his eyes. Marcus poured himself a cup of stale coffee from the break room machine, just to look busy. "Devon treats everyone that way?" he asked quietly. Elena let out a short, bitter laugh. "Only people he thinks can't fight back," she said. She glanced toward Devon's glass office down the hall, where he sat, with his feet up on his desk. "He got promoted twice this year. Nobody asks how." She lowered her voice even further. "There's talk that Preston protects him. Nobody knows why." Down the hall, cleaning carts rattled softly as other night staff moved between offices. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering every few minutes in the empty corridor. Marcus kept his head down, moving slow and steady, blending into the quiet rhythm of the tower's night shift. Every conversation he overheard, every badge swipe he watched, became one more piece of the puzzle he was building in his mind. Marcus filed that detail away carefully in his mind. Every small piece mattered now. She opened the file quickly on her own laptop later that day, just to check it was whole. Her eyes scanned the numbers once, then again, as her face slowly lost its color. What was hidden inside that recovered file that made Elena's face go pale the second she opened it again? Elena later told Marcus a dangerous secret, whispering quickly by the elevator bank. Preston kept the original contract for the patent sale locked inside an offline server. It sat in a restricted room called the Genesis Vault, up on floor 49. Marcus knew right away he had to get inside that room. Late one night, he used his master-level mechanical skills to quietly disable a heat sensor near the vault door, careful not to trigger any alarm. Marcus checked his watch one last time, before pushing the vault door open, just enough to slip through sideways. A faint red light above the frame blinked once, then went dark, exactly as he had planned. His pulse pounded loud in his own ears. He forced his breathing slow, and even, the way he used to, before big presentations years ago. The server room air felt ice-cold against his skin the moment he stepped inside. Cooling fans roared in a steady, endless rhythm, filling the space with a low mechanical hum. Blue and red lights blinked across long rows of humming machines, painting strange, shifting shadows on the walls. Cold sweat ran down Marcus's forehead and slid slowly into the corner of his eye. He did not dare blink, while his fingers moved carefully through a tangled maze of thin fiber cables. Halfway through the download, a small warning light blinked amber near the main server rack. Marcus's heart slammed hard against his ribs. He quickly rerouted a cable, his fingers moving fast and sure despite the shaking in his hands. The light turned green again after a long, tense second. He let out a slow breath through his teeth, forcing his shoulders to relax. Then heavy footsteps echoed suddenly from the hallway just outside the door, cutting through the mechanical silence like a knife. Someone was coming closer, step by step. Who could it be at this late hour? Devon Cross stormed into the room, with two large security guards standing close behind him. Marcus was caught red-handed, still plugging in his small data copy device. Devon let out a cold, ugly laugh that echoed off the metal walls. He reached out and grabbed Aaliyah's notebook right from Marcus's shaking hand. He tore the leather cover clean off in one violent motion and threw it into a metal trash bin like garbage. Then he pulled out his phone and called Preston, demanding the police arrest Marcus immediately for corporate spying. "You think a uniform makes you invisible?" Devon sneered, stepping closer to Marcus, with his chin held high. "Men like you don't belong on this floor. You never did." His guards moved in tighter on either side, blocking any path to the door. Marcus stayed silent, his eyes locked steady on Devon's face, refusing to look away first. It got worse from there. Devon spotted Maya waiting quietly in the lobby downstairs, having come to visit with Arthur. He threatened to call Child Protective Services, claiming Marcus had abandoned his daughter to commit a serious crime. A man who breaks into a locked server room isn't fit to raise a little girl, Devin said coldly. He held up his phone like a weapon. One call, and she's gone, into the system tonight. Paper ripped, with a sharp, ugly sound in the small, cramped room. Maya's scream echoed faintly down the hallway, as a guard gently held her back near the elevators. Dust and old cracked leather filled the air, where the ruined notebook now lay broken and torn. Every blood vessel in Marcus's face pulled tight beneath his skin. His skin went pale, as paper drained completely of all color. His throat closed, so tight that no words could escape, not even a whisper. For a moment, the whole room seemed to disappear around him. All he could see was that torn leather cover lying in the trash, catching the harsh fluorescent light. He watched a piece of his dead wife's legacy get destroyed right in front of his own eyes. Cornered like this, with his wife's memory shredded, and his daughter's safety now threatened, would this hidden genius finally choose to surrender? Guards locked Marcus inside a small security room to wait quietly for the police to arrive. But he was far from broken inside. He lifted his wrist and tapped a hidden microchip built into his old mechanical watch, the one Aaliyah had given him years ago. That tiny chip connected straight to the copy device he had planted inside the server earlier that night. The full upload was already complete, safely stored far away. Sitting alone on a cold metal bench, he decoded the stolen contract line by line on the tiny watch screen. The truth became clear now, sharp and undeniable. Preston Vance had forged Sloan Hastings' signature to legalize the entire technology handover deal. That single forgery secured his secret $82 million payoff from Titanium Global. Dim light from the small watch face lit up rows of scrolling green code in the dark room. The watch ticked steady and calm, over and over, filling the quiet space. He thought about Aaliyah then, sitting alone on that cold metal bench. He remembered her voice, calm and sure, telling him that good work always finds its way to the light eventually. He looked down at the torn notebook cover in the trash bin, through the small window in the door. Even broken, her formulas had done exactly what she always said they would. They had found the truth hiding inside a locked, guarded room. The corner of Marcus's mouth twitched into a cold, small smile. Color slowly returned to his tired face. The tight muscles in his jaw finally relaxed, as he held the full proof of their downfall in the palm of his hand. Who could Marcus possibly send this evidence to, locked as he was behind a thick steel security door? Marcus used his highest access level, the Vanguard Genesis key hidden inside his watch chip, to send every stolen file straight to Sloane's personal computer. Sloane read through the documents, with growing horror at her desk upstairs. She realized in that moment that Preston had turned her into the fall guy for his entire dirty deal. Her hands shook as she scrolled through page after page of forged signatures. She rushed to the security room and unlocked the heavy door herself, using her own executive access card. But Preston had already noticed the sudden data leak on his monitoring system. He gave a sharp order to lock down the entire tower immediately. Every exit sealed shut, with a heavy mechanical clunk. He even cut power to the elevators, trying desperately to stop Sloane and Marcus from reaching the boardroom on floor 50. Emergency alarms screamed through every hallway, sharp and endless, bouncing off the tall glass walls. Red warning lights flashed down every corridor in a steady, angry rhythm, painting the floors like blood. Electronic locks slammed shut one after another with a dry, hard click, sealing off every possible route. Sloane's voice shook as she spoke into her phone, trying to reach security. Her breath came fast and short, her chest rising quickly. Sweat soaked her palm around her now useless electronic keycard. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus asked her, both of them pressed against a cold hallway wall, catching their breath. Sloane's eyes stayed hard, but her voice cracked just slightly. "Because I signed nothing," she said, "and I refuse to lose everything for a lie I never told." She looked at him closely for the first time, really seeing him. "Who are you, really?" Marcus only shook his head slowly. "Someone who has waited a long time for this day," he said quietly. With every path blocked, and police sirens already wailing somewhere outside, How could two people alone reach the very top floor of this locked tower? Marcus remembered an old maintenance stairwell, one that only the building's original designer would ever know about, tucked behind a supply closet. He and Sloane climbed fast, floor after floor, their legs burning hard, with every single step. Sweat dripped down both their faces in the stale, dusty stairwell air. Their footsteps echoed loud against the narrow concrete walls, rushed and uneven. They finally pushed open the heavy door to floor 50. Preston was just about to sign the final digital contract with Titanium Global. The heavy oak doors swung open with a low groan, drawing every eye in the room toward the entrance. Preston and Devin both laughed out loud when they saw Marcus standing in the doorway. They called for security to throw him out like common trash. But Marcus stayed perfectly calm, his breathing slow and even. He walked straight to the center of the long conference table. He pushed his rough, unpolished gold Vanguard key into a hidden master control port beneath the table's edge. Instantly, every screen in the boardroom lit up at once. Hidden security footage began to play for the entire stunned room to see. It showed Preston and Devin calmly discussing their secret $82 million payoff, word for word. Sloane stepped forward next, her heels silent now on the thick carpet. She dropped a thick folder onto the table, letting it slap hard against the polished wood surface. Inside were the documents proving her own signature had been forged from the very beginning. The whole room froze solid in an instant. Nobody moved a single muscle. The projector fan hummed a soft, steady note in the sudden, dead silence. Every board member's face turned to stone, shocked completely still like rows of pale statues. Preston's face drained white in an instant, all the blood gone from his skin. Sweat rolled down both sides of his forehead in thick, heavy beads. The muscles in his cheek twitched again and again as he heard his own recorded voice playing from the ceiling speakers. Devin collapsed backward into his leather chair without a word. His hands gripped the table's edge so hard that his fingernails cracked and began to bleed. An older board member near the window slowly took off his glasses. He rubbed his eyes like he could not believe what he heard. Another member whispered something to his neighbor, then fell silent again. Preston tried to speak. "This is fabricated," he said, his voice cracking halfway through the sentence. Nobody in the room believed him. Not anymore. "Read the timestamp," Sloane said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "That recording matches the server logs down to the second." She turned to face the board directly. "I trusted this man with my career. He used my name to steal from every family this project was supposed to help. With their entire world collapsing around them in one single terrible moment, what dirty card would these two desperate men try to play next?" Silence. Nothing. Federal agents walked into the boardroom just minutes later, their heavy boots echoing across the marble tile. They placed Preston Vance in handcuffs right there in front of everyone, charging him with financial fraud and corporate espionage. His legs buckled slightly as they pulled him toward the door. Devin Cross lost every single share of stock he had ever owned within the hour. His personal assets were seized on the spot by federal order. Security guards dragged him out of the building in full view of the entire watching staff. His gold watch still flashed uselessly on his wrist. Marcus finally revealed the full truth to the stunned room. He was the anonymous founder of Vanguard Genesis Group all along, hidden behind a simple technician's uniform. Gasps spread across the table as board members realized who had been mopping their floors and fixing their computers for the past 2 weeks. He announced that full funding would be restored for the urban solar grid project, 100%, effective immediately that afternoon. Later that week, lawyers finalized Preston's criminal charges, adding wire fraud to the long list against him. Devin fought to keep some of his assets, but the evidence left him no room to argue. News crews camped outside the tower for days, asking questions nobody inside wanted to answer. Sloane Hastings lost her executive title that day, but Marcus offered her one more chance to make things right. She would run the solar project herself now, under close and careful watch, working to finish what Aaliyah had started years before. She accepted without hesitation, her voice quiet but firm. "I owe her That much, she said, glancing at the photo of Aaliyah, that Marcus now kept on his new office desk. Morning sunlight poured warm through the tower's tall glass walls the next day, washing away every trace of the dark night before. The clean, fresh smell of recent rain drifted gently through the building's filtered air system. Down in the lobby, Maya held her stuffed astronaut bear close to her chest. Marcus had carefully taped its broken plastic eye back together the night before, using steady, patient hands. He lifted Maya up into his arms, right there in the same lobby where it all began. She pressed her soft, warm cheek against his neck, quiet and content. Marcus took one deep, slow breath. His chest filled with a quiet kind of relief he had not felt in years. His eyes grew wet as he looked up through the glass ceiling at the clear blue Atlanta sky above them. Father and daughter walked out of the tower together, hand in hand, past the same marble floor where Maya had once cried. Behind them stood an empire finally washed clean of its rot and greed. Ahead of them waited a whole neighborhood of poor rooftops across the city, just beginning to shine under new panels of clean, honest sunlight. A few weeks later, workers climbed onto rooftops all across Zone 3, installing bright new solar panels one by one. Children gathered on the sidewalk below, pointing up and laughing at the shining glass squares. Arthur stood on his shop's front step, arms crossed, watching the work with quiet pride. Reggie, the young security guard from the tower lobby, had a new job now too, managing safety for the installation crews. He waved at Marcus from across the street, a wide grin on his face. Elena got promoted to project coordinator under Sloane's new team, finally free from Devon's cruel shadow. Arthur agreed to serve as lead advisor on the grid's technical design, working from his same old shop full of rust and grease. He said he liked it better that way, close to the ground, close to real work. That evening, Marcus sat on the porch with Maya, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Her astronaut bear sat between them, its mended eye catching the last light of the day. Mommy would be proud, Maya said quietly, resting her head against her father's arm. Marcus wrapped his arm around her and held her close. He did not need to say anything back. The warm evening air, the soft hum of new solar lights switching on down the block, and his daughter's steady breathing said everything he needed to hear. Somewhere far above the quiet street, the Vanguard Genesis Tower still gleamed under the city lights, taller than anything else around it. But down here, on this small porch in Zone 3, something far more powerful had finally come home to stay.